there, guys. We are back with another episode of Unfinished Business Television. Deep, 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 dive. And this time, we're actually looking at a film that's a little more modern than usual. We usually go, way back in time, but we're going to look at a film that's more modern and is a sequel to a very popular film franchise. But before all that, I am your host, Jeff Gallishaw of Unfinished Business Productions and at Unfinished B2 on social media. And with me, as always, is my co host, Andre Joseph of AJ Epics Productions.
I'm just happy doing the neutron dance.
Yes, that is a clue as to the film we are talking about. We are talking about the ever popular Beverly Hills Cop franchise. And no, we are not talking about the infamous 3, which I had a t-shirt for, but unfortunately, I can't find it at the time of this filming. So we are going to talk about Part 4, or AXEL F, as it is known. This is the latest in the franchise, and it brings back all the major players, except for Ronnie Cox. We have Taggart is back. We got Billy Rosewood, Judge Reinhold. We got Serge, played by Bronson Pinchot, for some reason. We even got Paul Reiser back as Axel's ex-partner, now captain in Detroit. And we have some new bucks up in here. We have Taylor Page as Axel's daughter, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a fellow Beverly Hills cop who used to date her and is a helicopter pilot. And to add just a little sizzle and spice to this film, we have Kevin Gucci Shoes Bacon as, could he be the villain or could he be just a concerned citizen? This movie is directed by Mark Mylod. And as you know, Andre Joseph is a fan of this franchise. So, Andre, why don't you tell us all about Beverly Hills Cop 4? And if you want to, tell us all the versions between Part 3 and up to this current film. And
I'll give you as much of the abridged version of how we got here. So they've been trying to develop a fourth Beverly Hills Cop since 96 when Eddie had his initial comeback with the Nutty Professor. And there have been a lot of scripts produced over the years, none of which were really to satisfaction. There was one where he was supposed to go to London and team up with like a younger version of himself from that's like a upstart in Beverly Hills to help him out to fight some terrorists. That didn't work out. That was actually written by the guy that wrote The Hurricane, Dan Gordon. Jason Rickman, who wrote Bad Company with Chris Rock, wrote a draft that didn't get made. And then it almost started coming together twice. The first time was in 2009. Brett Ratner was going to direct, and it was going to be Billy gets killed by dirty cops. So kind of similar to what we have in this movie. And Axel comes back and he teams up with like a Jonah Hill type character to solve Billy's murder. And it's linked between the Beverly Hills cops and this rich kid that's like a drug dealer of some sort. That didn't get made. Then later on, there was another idea of Axel already living in Beverly Hills, and then a case brings him back to Detroit on the coldest winter on record. That was written by the guys that wrote the Ninja Turtle reboot movies, and that one didn't get made. And that was also going to be done by Brett Ratner. At a certain point, Eddie said, I think I'm done with Axel Foley. Everybody's forcing the premise. So we'll do a TV show instead. And that's how you got this TV pilot that was produced for CBS. And Brandon Jackson, coming off of Tropic Thunder, was cast as the son of Axel Foley, who goes to Beverly Hills and tries to escape his father's shadow to be this hotshot cop. And Eddie makes an appearance to help him out on a case. And long story short, the CBS people aired it in front of a test audience, and the test audience only liked the Eddie Murphy parts. So Les Moonves, the controversial Les Moonves, said, "Fire this kid, get Eddie Murphy on the show." And Eddie didn't want to go back to television, And so this pilot never got picked up to a full series. But Paramount said, okay, if he still got it, let's try to do a fourth movie. So that's when they were trying to do the Detroit premise, and they had a 2016 release date set. So it looked like it was going to happen, but then again, it fell apart. And then Brett Ratner was out, and that's when Adila Bilal were going to direct. When Jerry Bruckheimer decided to produce it again, and they were set until the a couple of COVID and a couple things. Then they were supposed to do the Batgirl movie, which we know what happened there. So they dropped that, and that's how we got Mark Malloy. And then the script by Will Biel finally started to come together, which is what we have now. So that leads to why we are here and why this movie got made. And it is simply because they found a way to evolve Axel Foley as a character after all these films. So they don't ignore Beverly Hills Cop 3. Instead, we're fast forwarding to now. He's still in Detroit. He's still kicking ass. But his buddy Jeffrey, played by Paul Reiser, he's on his way to retire. In fact, he's now the new chief. He took over from Inspector Todd, but he just put in his papers to retire. And he's telling Axel, listen, I can't keep covering your ass. I think you need to calm down, and I think you need to start talking to your daughter again. The daughter Jane, played by Taylor Page, who they don't say is Teresa Randall's daughter, the girlfriend from Cop 3, but it's almost, if you look at her closely, it's possible that could be her kid, but they never say so. The daughter, Jane, is a defense, actually a criminal defense attorney in Beverly Hills, and she's on a case involving a police shooting, and the defendant is being accused of killing a cop who may happen to be dirty. And then when her life gets threatened by some mysterious masked men, she calls up Billy, who supposedly now is no longer a cop. He's a PI, and he calls up Axel because he's onto some shady shit going on between the Beverly Hills police and some local drug cartel. But he disappears, although the audience knows he's been captured. So Axel goes back to Beverly Hills, tries to reconnect with his daughter, who again wants nothing to do with him because he has not been present in most of her life. When he gets busted on his way to looking at Billy's apartment, he finds out Taggart's the new chief, and it turns out Taggart and Rosewood had a little bit of a falling out over Rosewood's conspiracy theory about the police. That's when we're introduced to Kevin Bacon, who is this captain that was also Taggart's protege. And there's something shady about him because not only was he the captain of this killed cop, but he's kind of living up the high life and wearing nice shoes, nice watches, and clearly there's something up there. So Axel knows something's going on, and that's where like he gets Joseph Gordon-Levitt on his side. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is playing this one of Taggart's underlings who had a relationship with Taylor Page and is kind of sympathetic to Axel, but also trying to keep him in line. And that's when shit starts happening, when they start to really uncover this conspiracy. And thing I definitely will say is there are a lot of Easter eggs. There's a lot of nostalgia. They play all the hit songs from the previous movies, from The Heat Is On by Glenn Frey. The chase scene in the beginning has Shakedown by Bob Seger. They play Neutron Dance when he goes to Beverly Hills. And then you have some new stuff here and there. Obviously, the Lil Nas X song is what plays. But coming out of it, this was everything that I wanted and more. I'm not going to say, listen, well, it's not to the level of the first film, and it is a notch down from two. But as an improvement from three, holy shit, this was a big freaking improvement over Beverly Hills Cop 3. And it was kind of funny how he's going through the arrest report and then he mentions 94. It's like, oh, not your finest hour. So clearly, right away, they acknowledge this movie, it happened, but we're not going to really get into it. um, Everything about it, like Mark Malloy really did everything to bring back everything that we remember, and even the little details. He gives him the same gun, obviously an updated Detroit Lions jacket. He still drives the same shitty sky blue Chevy Nova from the original, And even his cinematography at times takes a lot of nods from the first two films. It's shot like a Tony Scott movie at times, and other times it's shot like a Martin Brest film. But at its core, you have a story that really evolves the character of Axel Foley in the relationship with the daughter, and that's what makes it so endearing. So Eddie Murphy still does his shtick. He's still funny. He's still conning his way into things and bullshitting his way to get information, but it's done in a manner that fits with his age and not like he has to really be the fast talking guy. That might be disappointing for some people, but for me, it shows he still has an edge. He still has skin in the game, as Eddie has been saying a lot. And more importantly, having all the original characters back, even though like they do pull back from Billy, the fact that they're there still makes it worthwhile. And the ending, I pretty much felt pleased with the way it all kind of comes together. And there's a lot more I'll say, but I'll jump to you, Jeff.
Beverly Hills Cop, not my favorite franchise. I like the films, but not my favorite. I always liked maybe part two out of all of them the most
Yes,
because
that's my favorite role.
yeah, it's like it's got the best mixture of both, like incredible action sequences and good comedy sequences. My only thing I will agree with you on is that yes, it is way better than three. Which, other than the initial chase gun battle, that's the only noteworthy part of part three to me, at least.
Yeah.
Film, I feel I liked it. I think it's more of a fan service, though. Like, this is not the film. If you've never seen a Beverly Hills Cop movie, go in with this one. No, I would say start from the beginning. Um, I thought everybody did what they were supposed to do. I thought the writing about Taggart and Kevin Bacon's relationship could have been a little better. And that just seemed like, oh, I'm going to take this guy who's my protege at his word over, guy who was my partner for how many years.
But I kind of like that moment where it's like, you're in on this? Are you on the take? And then that kind of brings more tension. That was a nice moment.
Well, I'm just like, yeah, that I felt like that could have been written better. I liked that, Axel can't always smooth talk his way out of things like he used to be. So, like, it was sort of like that moment in uh, Ride or Die, Bad Boys, where Will Smith had to accept that the younger guy could get into the club easier than he could. So, I like that kind of sense. The only purely comedic scene that just felt kind of it didn't match the rest of the movie was the scene with Bronson Pinchot and the going to the house. That felt weird, even though I like Nassim Paradad as the uh, real estate agent
Yeah,
who was
she was
trying
hot.
to sell that. Yes, I thought she was hot, but that was the only time where the film felt like this isn't an action movie. This is a comedy now. That's the only scene that kind of felt out of place within the whole film. Like, that scene felt like it belonged in part three, almost a little. But I did enjoy it. But again, I think for nostalgia's sake, that's why I enjoyed it the most. Bring everybody back together, because it wasn't like Ronnie Cox was in part three. So it wasn't like, oh no, he was in those three, but not this one.
I will say with Ronnie Cox, I mean, they do show the fishing picture in the one scene, which was funny when he's in Billy's apartment. Oh, that was like looking little motherfucker. But they don't acknowledge where he is. It's presumed he's either dead or fully retired. Because I think if you look in the background of the police station, you could see like the pictures of all the chiefs. You see Chief Lutz picture, and you see the chief from the first movie, and I think you could see him, but nobody ever talks about him. And I feel like I would want to have some sense of, hey, where is he at?
True. And they didn't bring back his friend from the first film.
Which one?
The one who was, I guess, a designer then, who
Oh, Jenny
introduced him.
Summers, Lisa Ellebacher. Well, she retired, and that's another character I've also said they need to acknowledge her whereabouts after Cop One.
Exactly. And, that obviously doctored photo of him and Paul Reiser being in the academy, graduating the academy together.
Yeah, that was a
That
little weird.
Yeah, that was like nitpick, but it didn't really matter. But like I said, I liked it. I didn't feel it was Eddie being as sharp as he once was, but that might be what was written as the character. And obviously, he's gone on interviews to say he doesn't do the laugh anymore, because he got tired of people doing an impression of him with the laugh. So he didn't want that to be his trademark.
I
So
know
that was
the
the
director wanted to reprise the banana in the tailpipe scene. It's like, nah, we already did that once. We can't repeat that.
exactly what you're gonna do this every time he comes to Beverly Hills. But that was the only thing I felt was missing was the laugh. That was it.
I
But
think, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it's a fun ride. I don't think, like I don't love the film, but I liked it. It put a smile on my face in the end. You know.
I want to go to why I would rate this as the third favorite of the four movies, and it's
Okay.
probably the biggest nitpick that I have. Besides the fact that the plot is a little bit convoluted, like there's a certain point where like the kid that's on trial that Taylor Page is protecting, he disappears. Like we never really know what
No.
happens. It's just pretty much straight up. She's got to be saved from Kevin Bacon, and that's that. And by the way, Kevin Bacon, very good in this film. I know people saying he was underwritten, but I think he added a tension that was a good contrast to Eddie Murphy in this film. And even the added thing of him being a cokehead kind of made him a little bit more fun and squirmy as a bad guy. And I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt as well. I like the banter with him and Eddie, especially when they're in the truck trying to get to the mansion and trying to introduce him to Billy. He's like, yeah, he's fornicating with my daughter. Like, this is getting awkward. Speaking of which, is it just me or did Rosewood look like he became a pothead? Because the way he comes off, he seemed like he's been smoking a lot of weed since he left the force.
He seemed like a normal guy, just maybe disillusioned because now he's this private detective, and his partner didn't have his back, and Axel's really the only friend he has. But I wouldn't put it past him. I just want to know, was Luis Guzman's wardrobe and role, like, was that all improv from Luis Guzman? Because if you notice, like a lot of roles now, he's always open robed and wearing makeup. So I'm just like, okay, or was that just always in the script?
They probably
And
just let him do whatever the hell he wants. It's Louis Guzman.
and again, that talk about underwritten him in this to be such a major character in it.
I
It
did
just felt
expect
like,
this scene to be funnier.
yeah, it was like he just seemed like he was cameoing for the most part. And like you said, well, the thing with the kid in jail, that felt like a loose plot from a Lethal Weapon, the show
Yeah.
plot line. I was just like, okay, that's what we're gonna go with to get us into this case. Um, I
Well, here's
like
the point that I want to make about the film, real quick, before I get back to you. So, I think the one big gripe I have with it is goes back to what Eddie was saying in interviews about he didn't want to do too many stunts. He's like, don't ask me to do stuff that Morgan Freeman you wouldn't ask him to do. And it shows, at least like physically, okay, yeah, he's a little paunchy, but physically he still looks good for his age, that he could probably kick some ass. That said, though, if you notice, a good chunk of the movie is him just getting into chases, and particularly chases by car, like it's Grand Theft Auto, stealing the snowplow, stealing the zip card and the big truck from the docks. It seems like he doesn't want to run. He barely gets into any real gunfights except at the end. And it's mostly Joseph Gordon-Levitt doing all that. And of course, there's no real fist fights. Whereas in the other movies, he was running, jumping, shooting, and it seems like he pulled back a lot here, and that's probably like the one thing that kind of upset me. Not that I'm asking him to do Tom Cruise or Will Smith stunts, but I'm like, Axel's a shooter. He's flipping around doing stuff. He's got stunt men. They could, deep fake his face onto a stunt guy to do heavier stuff. Why do we have to like pull back?
Well, don't forget also, even though we in the movie we shall not name, but in part three, they overloaded that film with action
Yeah.
sequences with him. So maybe he's also like, yo, after that film, I did so many. Because that movie made Axel more into like as you were saying, like a Tom Cruise Mission Impossible type character with all the stunts he was doing.
Yeah, the
So
spider ride scene.
yeah, I mean, obviously because the comedy was left on the floor. So that's why I think maybe, and like you said, his age probably. He's like, yeah, I'm not doing too much action. So that's why I think maybe in this go round. And again, you have so many cast members, you got to make an action sequence for each of them that like have something to do and be the hero in. So it was like, well, let's do that. And I kind of like not knowing what Taggart's wife looked like in all these
Oh
movies.
yeah, well that was unexpected and hilarious.
But still, it was just like, really? And I liked her being like Vera on Cheers, who we always heard about but never actually saw.
Yeah,
So
I also say two things about that. One, I think they needed like a surprise cameo there by some name actress to play the wife. And I also like the fact that they did explain away how Taggart unretired to come back to the force because of her. So that completely wiped away Cop 3.
Diggs. Well, I'll give him that. Yeah, if I guess if you could get her, I'd be like, put Bette Midler in there. And but like I said, I enjoyed it. I mean, I'd still rather them make a kick-ass 48 hours movie, but that's never gonna happen.
Well, no, no.
But
That was like 80.
that would have been the hard hitting sequel I'm looking for. But like I said, I like it. Trust me, this is better not only than part three, but some more recent Eddie Murphy movies.
Oh,
So,
hell yeah. This I wouldn't say this was as good as Dolomite as My Name, but way better than You People and Candy Cane Lane and Coming to America. This is how you do a legacy sequel correctly, not what they tried to do there with the bad makeup and repeating the same jokes. This one, yeah, a lot of Easter eggs and leaning too heavily on nostalgia, but it still progressed the story forward. These characters did have an evolution. And the last two things I also want to say too, the Shooter McGavin cameo makes me think, are we now trying to tie this with Happy Gilmore? I mean, granted, he wasn't Christopher McDonald was not credited as Shooter McGavin, but it's too on the nose as a reference to that movie, unless Mark Malloy is going to direct that next. Um, and the soundtrack was fire, undoubtedly. I was so worried they were going to do a full orchestral score like they did with Cop 3. I love Nile Rodgers. It was just completely inappropriate for Beverly Hills Cop. But Lauren Bath did his job with that keyboardist that's on YouTube, and then the saxophone guy from The Lost Boys is on the score. I was like, holy shit. He not only recreated how Fort Myers themes, he added to it and progressed it forward. And it is so good. I mean, I'm not crazy with the Lil Nas X song, but I would want to buy that soundtrack today.
now, when you say saxophonist from the Lost, the dude with his shirt off,
Yeah, the big muscular dude who worked with Tina Turner and all her
he
people.
was the saxophonist.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that gives it a few more cool cred points. Um, what was the point you made before the soundtrack, though?
Oh, it was about Christopher McDonald.
Oh, but his character was a doctor. So Shooter McGavin is not a doctor.
Are you sure? Because he got disgraced at the end of that tournament. He probably could have got.
He goes to a medical career in his 50s.
Maybe that's how he got his money.
Yeah, you never know. But I'm like, I enjoyed that was really the only big name cameo we really get in the whole movie. So, well, mid name, so I'll accept it. Um, I like that. I enjoyed the film. I like that like in the shootout, the lady's more concerned about her little dog
Mm.
than anything. Like I said, it's enjoyable. I think even if it had gone to theaters, it would have made money. Is
Yeah, that's the other shame is that they didn't release this theatrically. I know there was some limited screenings, but given the hype that Netflix put into this, I think people definitely would have come out to see it. It would have been number one for like 5 weeks straight. I don't think it would have done the numbers of the first film because that's just impossible now with Eddie, just obviously his audience today. but I think it would have done way better than 3. And probably, I would say this is like the Rocky Balboa of the series.
I can see that. I'm also happy it didn't do a Lethal Weapon 4 with at the end family.
Yeah, no, it seemed like they hinted that yeah, things are gonna heal in due time, but not like, oh, everybody comes back together. But the last scene with the 3 guys in the car, that was definitely a reshoot. They wanted at least that one moment with them back together, recreating the first movie. And it was cool. I like the throwback there.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't as serious as most of their scenes in the film, but it also wasn't like, yeah, like, oh, we got to try and be funny here. It was just like, oh, hey, we're together again. Hey, it's nice, isn't it? Let's go somewhere and have a drink. And so like I said, I have no big qualms with this film. I think it's perfectly fine. I think a lot of people will enjoy it. I think people will enjoy it more than they will dislike. And
Yeah.
I'll admit, no, it's not Bad Boys, but Beverly Hills Cop was never that cutting edge like that, with style and all this. It was more like character,
Yeah, that was the whole thing with Martin Brest at the first movie, was that if you put aside the premise of a cop trying to avenge his dead friend, the movie's really about culture shock. It's about this blue collar cop facing an establishment that's by the book and protecting the rich. And in the process, befriending these 2 other detectives that begin to see his way and realize, yeah, sometimes you got to look at these people because they're doing dirty shit with their own legit businesses. And in that sense, they end up creating a bond, and that was what Martin Brest was good at, was character before glitz and spectacle and big action sequences. Even though I love the second movie, but when you ground it and you care about those characters, that's what you needed, and that's what this film had.
Well, the thing that they would have never done, if Sylvester Stallone could have put aside his ego, it would have been interesting to see him as a villain in this.
There was always a rumor that they were thinking about him playing a bad guy in a future film, and obviously that's never happened. They keep throwing in the references to his movies in each one. That leads me to think about the 5th movie, which they say could be happening because Netflix has an option for it. And I'm wondering, do they finally take Axel overseas? Do they do more with the daughter? Like, it has to be the last one because, I mean, if Eddie wasn't going to do many stunts here, imagine the next movie if he's like 65 and says, I'm not even going to like walk.
I'm like, as long as they don't do a Bad Boys and start killing off major characters, I'm fine. And
Yeah, and don't try to start stretching the plot. Like, oh yeah, there was this thing that happened in '84 that now we have to deal with again.
exactly. So like I said, I give it a recommendation. I say, hey, check it out. If especially if you're an Eddie Murphy fan, and if you've ever seen any of the previous ones other than 3, check this one out. It's enjoyable. It's fun. It's cute. That's what I'll say about it. And
Yeah, I think for the fans of the franchise, it's a huge relief. It's not the best action film, it's not the best comedy in like 10 years, but very entertaining, very fun, and it's Eddie Murphy with that charm again, and that's all I'm asking for.
and that will end this episode of Deep Dive from Unfinished Business Television. You can always check us out, obviously on YouTube, where hopefully you're seeing this, but also you can check us out on Instagram. You can check us out on Twitter, not X, Twitter. And until next time, we'll see ya.
If you like this review, please be sure to like and hit subscribe to be alerted to new episodes in the future.